one that came in on Facebook. Let's go ahead and deal with this one, and before we go to some that were emailed. This one is, my question is, does the devil have children? Well, let's go to Ephesians chapter 2, Troy. I think we were actually just talking about this for a Good News Today question in one sense of it. Keith, man, you've been good to tune in each week. I appreciate that so much. And I can see your question coming from several ways. Does the devil literally have children? There's that question. Now, I'll leave that to Troy here for a second. But figuratively, does he have children? Now, I'd say yes. And I'll start reading in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1. And you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins, wherein time past you walk according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also we all had our conversation in times past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of our mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. And that's not talking about the idea of being inherited sin. That's actually what we were discussing for the Good News Today program that we were recording. But what it does describe, as Jesus would explain to his disciples, you're servants to whom ye yield yourselves to obey.
That's exactly it.
And we can be children of light, children of God. And you go on to verse 5, the idea that he has quickened us together with Christ because we're no longer the children of disobedience. But when you're children of disobedience in a spiritual sense or a figurative sense, you would be a child of the devil.
Yeah, and the scriptures give you that answer. If you go to 1 John chapter 3.
Oh, yes.
1 John chapter 3, verse 9 and 10, it says, whoever has been born of God
is of God.
There's a key thing right there. Whoever is born of God does not sin, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. And you need to understand what that means, being born of God. That was Nicodemus' question in John chapter 3.
How shall a man be born again, enter into the mother's womb a second time?
Yeah, so he's talking about it figuratively there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the phrase born again, it's basically the same thing as saying being baptized. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Romans 6. But then the interesting verse is in verse 10. In this, the children of God. See, you are made a child of God if you are born again. And then it says, and the children of the devil are manifest. So both the children of God and the children of the devil are manifest. They're shown. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is he who does not love his brother. So as you were saying figuratively, you become a child of whoever you follow or whoever you choose. Was it the Apostle John right here? In fact, back up right there in verse 7, he says, little children.
Exactly.
This is the apostle talking to his disciple, his followers, one he was teaching.
Jeff, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, in John chapter 8, it's used in two different senses here. The unbelieving Jews, they answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus saith unto them, ye were Abraham's children. In other words, they were physical descendants. But then he said in verse 44, you are of your father the devil.
Wow.
And the lust of your father ye will do. They were unbelieving. Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds, you're exactly right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Y'all will get a kick out of this. I looked over there and Jeff's head was cut off on the screen. I was like, what's going on? But my screen was scrolled down. We got a lot going on.
I was going to say that, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is you just saw inside the mind of a producer right there.
Yeah. Promise it wasn't me.
Yeah,
it wasn't, but I was like, man, what's going on? I was trying to look at your screens and my screen all at once. I'm glad your head is okay, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too.
But no, I mean, and you're all right. But now, if your question, Keith, was not in the spiritual sense, does he have literal children? I would say the answer is no, because we are dealing with angelic beings that are not given in marriage. You quoted that earlier.
Matthew 22.
All right, Matthew chapter 22.
Yeah.
They're not given, what's that?
Neither married nor given in marriage, but are as the angels of heaven, which indicates, and if he is a fallen angel, then he would not have that ability. Yes.
We know they are created beings. If they weren't created, that would make them equal with God, and so that's not the case. But we have nothing of the idea of reproduction taking place. That is something that he set in order for mankind here on this earth.
Going back to Revelation that we were have touched on a few times. When we were talking about chapter 12 and chapter 13 and the beast and the mark of the beast and stuff, there's his children in that figurative sense. And basically what the word children would mean there, if you're
Followers.
or allies, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Wouldn't that be a good way of describing that, is allies? So physically, no. Spiritually, yes. And it depends, how you're going to answer that question. What a great question, Keith. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that a lot.